play.
It's that moment in the year again. Can't believe it's another year since the last ATP Finals in Turin, and yeah, here we are again. So power rankings, here we go. Number 8, the man who says that winning this tournament is more important than winning a Grand Slam, Stefanos Tsitsipas. Some of you might think, well, that's a little bit harsh given that he was in the semi-finals last week in Paris, winning 250 all year and not really making too much of an impression at many tournaments since Australia means that he comes in at number 8 for me. Anyway, also, by the way, I think Tsitsipas' sort of head-to-heads against players such as Rune, Alcaraz and Djokovic means it's going to be a tough ask for him to make it out of the group. Of course, the group, by the way, which will be drawn today as I record it in a couple of hours from now, but they haven't been drawn yet. And of course, this could have a slight influence on our power rankings, but listen, I'm going for it this way anyway. Number 7 on my list. John, count backwards. 7 on my list has to be Alexander Zverev. Again, similar reasons to Tsitsipas, but I think his form at the beginning of the Asia swing and also US Open, he made more of an impression there. I think he can trouble. It's kind of, sometimes when I'm making these lists, it's also like, how are you going to get on against Novak? How are you going to get on against Carlos? I think against Novak he can probably trouble him slightly more than Stefanos can, but still number 7 on the list. Anyway, let's get through this. Number 6. This was a tough one for me. Some of you might think I've placed Holger Rune too high at number 6, but actually I was considering him at number 5, and I went for the number 5 because of something recent that happened, and that changed my mind. But listen, number 6, Holger Rune. Again, I think when you're looking lower down the risk, again, it's kind of like, what can this player do if they're in the same group as Novak, or if they play Novak in the semi-finals? And Holger Rune, 2-2 head-to-head, could have beaten him in Paris recently. I know he barely won a match after Wimbledon this year, but for me, a power ranking has to be, you know, what could they do? What are they likely to do? Well, I don't think he'll get out of the group, because I just think his form hasn't been good enough. But let's just say he's in the same group as Novak, and he beats Novak. You're basically 1 foot in the semi-finals, they're off. So for me, he's number 6. Number 5, Andrei Rublev. Okay, I told you that I was not sure whether to go for Rublev or Rune, but I've gone Ruby because of his performance last week, and also because it was also against Novak. And I know I'm kind of, that's my gauge, basically, for a lot of this power rankings. So yeah, I think his performances in Paris and really throughout the year on both hard and clay have told me he is capable of easily getting out of the group, and therefore he's number 5. Number 4 on my list is, this was a tricky one, but ultimately I went for Daniel Medvedev, primarily because of his head-to-head recently changing against Jannik Sinner. Medvedev will still go into this tournament among the favourites. Of course, he's won it before, hard court specialist. I don't think the speed of the courts in Turin will trouble him too much in terms of it being a fast-paced court. We know how he wasn't too keen on Indian Wells with it being a bit slow and a bit gritty, but Turin no problem, although he didn't get out of the group last year, but of course it was mighty close with 3 third set tie breaks, and his form this year was much better than 2022. So he's number 4. But number 3 on my list Medvedev will still go into this tournament among the favourites. Of course, he's won it before, hard court specialist. I don't think the speed of the courts in Turin will trouble him too much in terms of it being a fast-paced court. We know how he wasn't too keen on Indian Wells with it being a bit slow and a bit gritty, but Turin no problem, although he didn't get out of the group last year, but of course it was mighty close with 3 third set tie breaks, and his form this year was much better than 2022. So he's number 4. But number 3 on my list is Jannik Sinner. And the main reason is I just think that arguably he's the best, most informed player on the tour. You know, maybe I'm being a bit generous towards Carlos Alcaraz, who's number 2 on the list, bearing in mind he's not shown a lot of form post-Wimbledon, really, despite getting to the final in Cincinnati in the semi-final of the US Open. But of course there he lost to Medvedev in a kind of a jarring defeat, and he's had a few more sort of shocking defeats since then, or surprising defeats since then. Nevertheless, Carlos Alcaraz, his ceiling, his capability, his year has still been phenomenal, even if it's had a slightly disappointing end to it. But it may yet, of course, have an incredible silver lining should he go on to lift the title in Turin. I mean, pretty much the number 1 has gone for him now. I think Novak just needs to get 1 win, and 1 being the magic number. Novak Djokovic, I think, is an inarguable number 1 on this power ranking list. Won the top tournament last year. He's the world number 1. He won 3 out of the 4 Grand Slams, and it was very close to being a calendar year slam. And his form is still there. These courts are fine for him. Do I need to make a case for Novak Djokovic? Not really. So herein ends my power rankings for the ATP Tour Finals 2023. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.
Ready? Play.
It's that moment in the year again. Can't believe it's another year since the last ATP Finals in Turin, and yeah, here we are again. So power rankings, here we go. Number 8, the man who says that winning this tournament is more important than winning a Grand Slam, Stefanos Tsitsipas. Some of you might think, well, that's a little bit harsh given that he was in the semi-finals last week in Paris, winning 1-250 all year and not really making too much of an impression at many tournaments since Australia means that he comes in at number 8 for me. Anyway, also, by the way, I think Tsitsipas' sort of head-to-heads against players such as Rune, Alcaraz and Djokovic means it's going to be a tough ask for him to make it out of the group. Of course, the group, by the way, which will be drawn today as I record it in a couple of hours from now, but they haven't been drawn yet. And of course, this could have a slight influence on our power rankings, but listen, I'm going for it this way anyway. Number 7 on my list. John, count backwards. 7 on my list has to be Alexander Zverev. Again, similar reasons to Tsitsipas, but I think his form at the beginning of the Asia swing and also US Open, he made more of an impression there. I think he can trouble. It's kind of, sometimes when I'm making these lists, it's also like, how are you going to get on against Novak? How are you going to get on against Carlos? I think against Novak, he can probably trouble him slightly more than Stefanos can, but still, number 7 on the list. Anyway, let's get through this. Number 6. This was a tough one for me. Some of you might think I've placed Holger Rune too high at number 6, but actually I was considering him at number 5. And I went for the number 5 because of something recent that happened, and that changed my mind. But listen, number 6, Holger Rune. Again, I think when you're looking lower down the risk, again, it's kind of like, what can this player do if they're in the same group as Novak, or if they play Novak in the semi-finals? And Holger Rune, 2-2 head-to-head, could have beaten him in Paris recently. I know he barely won a match after Wimbledon this year, but for me, a power ranking has to be, you know, what could they do? What are they likely to do? Well, I don't think he'll get out of the group, because I just think his form hasn't been good enough. But let's just say he's in the same group as Novak, and he beats Novak. You're basically 1 foot in the semi-finals, they're off. So for me, he's number 6. Number 5, Andrei Rublev. Okay, I told you that I was not sure whether to go for Rublev or Rune, but I've gone Ruby because of his performance last week, and also because it was also against Novak. And I know that's my gauge, basically, for a lot of this power rankings. So yeah, I think his performances in Paris and really throughout the year on both hard and clay have told me he is capable of easily getting out of the group, and therefore he's number 5. Number 4 on my list is, this was a tricky one, but ultimately I went for Daniel Medvedev, primarily because of his head-to-head recently changing against Yannick Sinner. Medvedev will still go into this tournament among the favourites. Of course, he's won it before, hard court specialist. I don't think the speed of the courts in Turin will trouble him too much in terms of it being a fast-paced court. We know how he wasn't too keen on Indian Wells with it being a bit slow and a bit gritty, but Turin no problem, although he didn't get out the group last year, but of course it was mighty close with 3 third set tie breaks, and his form this year was much better than 2022. So he's number 4. But number 3 on my list is Yannick Sinner, and the main reason is I just think that arguably he's the best, most informed player on the tour. You know, maybe I'm being a bit generous towards Carlos Alcaraz, who's number 2 on the list, bearing in mind he's not shown a lot of form post-Wimbledon, really, despite getting to the final in Cincinnati in the semi-final of the US Open. But of course there he lost to Medvedev in a kind of a jarring defeat, and he's had a few more sort of shocking defeats since then, or surprising defeats since then. Nevertheless, Carlos Alcaraz, his ceiling, his capability, his year has still been phenomenal, even if it's had a slightly disappointing end to it. But it may yet, of course, have an incredible silver lining should he go on to lift the title in Turin. I mean, pretty much the number 1 has gone for him now. I think Novak just needs to get 1 win, and 1 being the magic number. Novak Djokovic, I think, is an inarguable number 1 on this power ranking list. Won the top tournament last year. He's the world number 1. He won 3 out of 4 Grand Slams, and it was very close to being a calendar year slam. And his form is still there. These courts are fine for him. Do I need to make a case for Novak Djokovic? Not really. So herein ends my power rankings for the ATP Tour Finals 2023. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.
Ready. Play.
Hey guys, so basically we're going to be watching the live draw ceremony, however it's going to be held. Actually, they just moved it even further, it seems, on YouTube, 3:55 p.m. I'm tired of this crap already. Like, it was supposed to be at 3, now it's at 3:45, then to 3:55. Just bugger off and give us the ceremony. Basically, you know, we may sit here for the next 18 minutes. I don't know what John plans to do, but we may. I mean, I can just talk about what sort of groups there could be and etc. And like who could land with whom. We have some viewers in the chat, so I guess we might do that. I have no clue how the actual ceremony itself will be run as well. So like if it's going to take 20 minutes, if there's going to be a lot of BS or not. Yeah, just have no idea regarding that. So we have 16 minutes and 30 seconds apparently left. Well, of course, we have 8 players. Number 1, 2, then number 3, 4, then number 5, 6, 7, 8, and then number 7, 8. These are the sort of pools that they're in. And this is basically the only thing we know, right? There are... No, that was actually me shaking my head at something that you said earlier. But that was... I agreed with you, and I shook my head because you said that some might say that whatever. Like, oh, I know. It was when you placed Rune 6, and you said that some would say that it's too high, and I was like, what? Who says that? Basically, that was my idea. So we've got, of course, Alcaraz, Djokovic. We've got Sinner, Medvedev, and then Tsitsipas, Rublev, and Zverev, Rune. And basically, what I'm trying to say is that we actually won't learn all that much from this draw, I think, because the pools are so nicely put together. Obviously, that's just, well, that's not random, but that's just the rankings. But the main thing is that, of course, Djokovic is probably the only player who has like a significant edge over the player in their respective pools. Djokovic is the main favorite, of course, 100%. He loves the Turin courts. He won in 2022, especially in the sort of post-prime version of his career, although I think we can still call it prime, to be honest with you. He plays tennis, he serves much better. He plays much more efficient, aggressive tennis, and the Turin courts definitely will play its part in just allowing him to do that. Whereas Alcaraz, there's that big thing. He has been the second best player of the year, like 100%. But the problem for him is that the Turin courts could be a little too fast. He hasn't played the ATP Finals yet, so there is some uncertainty there. So there's a big gap. But like Sinner, Medvedev, who's more dangerous at the moment? I have absolutely no clue. Rublev, Tsitsipas, it's probably pretty clear that Rublev is more dangerous, but I think both of them have a similar issue of sort of having a high base level, but I'm not sure they are actually capable of winning this event. Of course, Steph did back in 2019, but it's been a while since he threatened for a big title, and I know he was in the Australian Open final this year, but he did not threaten for that title. I'm sorry. There was no chance that he was beating Djokovic. And then you also have Zverev and Rune, who I also think fall into a very similar category of being potentially extremely strong and capable of beating anyone. But, there are question marks. Zverev only really at Cincinnati and at the US Open, he looked like a top 5-ish player. That was the only real moment, even when he won Chengdu later and made Beijing semis. Nah, that wasn't it. And since then, especially also in the loss to Tsitsipas, he just hasn't looked like it. But 2021, he won Turin. And generally speaking, he has been performing well at the ATP Finals, won it twice, once in London, once in Turin. So definitely a player whom I can imagine just having an absolute peak day out of nowhere and beating anyone really, including Novak. And Rune, the other guy. I would say that basically we've had that poor patch since Wimbledon, but Basel, but Paris, they were already much better. It seems like Rune is tuning into his game, and just basically the only liability that I see is the fact that, again, sort of like with Alcaraz, the Turin courts might be a little too fast for him. But he's another one of these Zverev type players for me here that just can beat anyone if he just has a good day. But the question is, how he holds up on the courts, and also just the question of consistency, I suppose. He can beat Novak. I mean, he's done it twice. He always plays him close. He can beat Carlos, obviously, but probably not the toughest matchup for him, though. That's Sinner. Whereas for Djokovic, out of all the guys that are playing, I mean, he could be, well, not. I'm not counting Alcaraz because he cannot be with him in the groups, but I think Djokovic might be the most afraid of Holger. Then again, on the touring courts, I would still favor Novak a lot more than I did in Paris, actually. So we'll see. If Rune will listen to his coach Becker, he has a tendency to have his own mind. Immature, that is. I mean, give him time, right? Becker has only been working with him for like a few weeks, so give him time. And Rune definitely, he hasn't made as much progress as I was hoping for this year. But if we just stopped at the clay season, that would have been a very nice campaign. It was just later that it fell apart. But because the ATP finals are coming after Paris, where he already played pretty well, I'm hoping that he will be a factor here. And not to say that, I'm hoping other players won't. I just think he could be the one who really elevates this event if he is in his top shape. And that the same goes for Zverev, actually. But I have more questions regarding Zverev's form than I do Rune's. The conditions are better for the German, though. We're reading something on screen. That's Stepanek, right? Yeah. It's definitely quite fun that he played the ATP finals one year, but I think he finished the season in the top 10. So it's not that weird either. It just wasn't that season, I guess. Or did he finish the season in the top 10? Let me actually check that. Maybe he was just close. No, actually he was 12. Okay, so he did not finish in the top 10. He was in the top 10 for a moment, but but he actually finished at 12. But yeah, that year that he played the ATP Finals, he actually finished at it was actually 26th, yeah, to end the season. So it's pretty wild. And he played 2 matches, lost both matches. So that was the wild year when Roger Federer did not get out of groups, because he lost to Andy Murray and he lost to Gilles Simon, although he did end up beating Radek Stepanek. I think the player that I'm most afraid of is Medi, because he played great when Novak was at his weakest, struggling physically. Last year he had match point against him, I believe. Well, Medvedev lost last year. He lost all 3 matches in deciding set tiebreaks. Right, that was pretty clear. That was pretty crazy. So you're saying you're afraid of Medvedev from Novak's perspective. I just have PTSD after the U.S. Open final. Yeah, it's gonna take me a while to get back to this matchup and enjoy it, honestly, because that match was such a disappointment. But if on these Turin courts, maybe. Dubai this year, right? Medvedev beat Djokovic, and that was similarly fast, although of course an outdoor court. But yeah, for Djokovic, probably Medvedev is the one that he doesn't want to draw. Djokovic Sinner, I would love to see again to sort of check out how Sinner's improvements stack up against Novak, because part of like his recent success was finally getting a win against Medvedev. Well, by now even 2, and sort of showing he can repeat it. Now it's beating Novak, and I think indeed it's like a goal that he will have in mind to beat Novak for the very first time. That's something that maybe may sound strange, but the way Medvedev and Djokovic have been, just hampering his chances, hampering his runs in recent years, I think this is actually a big goal for him to beat Novak for the first time. And as for Alcaraz, does he want to play Sinner or Medvedev? Probably Medvedev, but the U.S. Open, showed us that it's not exactly as easy of a matchup as maybe sometimes you think. And then Turin, if Medvedev just serves great, he could have a shot again in this matchup against him for sure. So Sinner is the one that he would like to avoid, definitely. In Turin on rapid courts, again, that weight of shot, the violent hitting of Sinner, I think would be pretty tough for Carlos to handle. So hopefully they don't move the draw ceremony again. As Terry just told us in the chat, Jack Draper beat Cem Ilkal, which, yeah, I don't think it was ever really a question. And he's going to play Jan-Lennard Struff in the semifinals in Sofia, which makes it a very feel-good semi, I think. Struff still chasing that elusive ATP title. And Draper would have some incredible momentum and just lots of just a great finish to the year overall after the injuries, and then maybe if he's healthy in 2024 he actually builds upon it, right? That's what we would be hoping for. Of course, whoever wins that final is not guaranteed to take the title. Definitely not. I mean, we have Martin Fucsovics there, we have the recent Stockholm finalist Pavel Kotov, we have Sebastian Ofner, and we have Adrian Manarino, who has already won 2 titles this year. But even making the final for one of these guys would be big. Struff, a 0-3 record in finals. Whereas Jack, has Jack made one yet? I don't think so, right? Am I blanking on one? I mean, he definitely made a semi in Australia. And yeah, I can't come up with it for now. So I don't think he's made one. But he had, a big run at the US Open this year. He had a big run at Canada last year, quarterfinal, and yeah, just a number of semis, a couple of top 10 wins as well. So probably yes. Doesn't really depend on who they meet up with first to determine how far they go, and is that determined by draw? Well, first, we're going to have Djokovic playing either Zverev or Rune, and Alcaraz playing Zverev or Rune. Like, that's how it works. Because for the first fixture, sort of, for the first slot of matches, you get the number 1, number 2 playing 7-8, and number 3-4 playing 5-6. So this actually is quite dangerous to Alcaraz, especially, I think, because if he gets, well, he is bound to get Zverev or Rune. He is bound to get Zverev or Rune. So he basically will have a potentially dangerous, an opponent who's unpredictable, definitely a potentially dangerous matchup right away. And that could mean trouble for Alcaraz, because let's imagine him losing to Rune or Zverev on the first day or on the second day, and then, then he's actually in big trouble. Djokovic, less so, because, you would still believe his chances to climb out of that. Whereas for Alcaraz, especially if Sinner was another rival in that group, I mean, it's the easiest draw in the world. There's no real way to explain it deeper. Like, it's the easiest draw. You just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, just like the WTA finals. It's Andrei Rublev with no clue. For Alcaraz, we don't know how much of his form is to do with injuries. I mean, is his form poor? I don't think so. Beijing lost to Sinner. Shanghai lost to Dimitrov, was playing well in some of these matches for sure. And then Paris, he just loses to Safiullin, which is perfectly fine. So I don't know. We'll see. But the results itself, I don't think so far have told us anything about the injuries. It's just the fact that he withdrew from Paris. And Carlos was injured during practice yesterday. So how did this, show? Could you give us the details, Terry, if you have them? And Keen is asking, do you think a player would rather win 1,000 or the finals? Yeah, I think so. I think the finals, yeah. No, I still think it's the finals. I think it means more. It's the top 8 players in the world. It's a ridiculous amount of cash. It's more points as well if you manage to do it. Well, it's actually guaranteed to be more points, because even if you win it with a 1-2 group stage record, you're still going to get 1,100. And I think it just makes you more legendary. I think Medic will come in second if he can mentally overcome a bad crowd or a bad call, like Novak has learned to do. Come in second as in this event. Let's see where he's drawn in, like who he's drawn in with. If we, for example, get Djokovic, Medvedev, do I want to say Zverev? Does Zverev have a big shot at beating Medvedev? Doesn't seem like this year. Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a fine chance of getting out of groups. I think actually out of these 4 players that we have at the top, so Djokovic, Medvedev, Sinner, Alcaraz is probably the most likely not to enter the semis, with Djokovic being the most likely, and one that would be, a real shocker if he didn't. And by the way, there's the number 1 situation as well, the number 1 scenarios, right, where you've got basically Alcaraz has to win the title undefeated, and Djokovic has to lose all his matches in the round robin stage for Alcaraz to be number 1. So it's not going to happen, and that's why on the most recent Iga and Carlos show with Vansh, we said that we were going to shave our heads if that happens, because we said that Iga Świątek is very unlikely to get to number 1, and then of course she went on a rampage, won Beijing and the WTA finals. And if that happens to Alcaraz as well, I'm not scared, honestly. I think Djokovic will just end the discussion right there with the very first match. And withdrawal doesn't count. So like if Djokovic would somehow withdraw from the finals and Alcaraz won it undefeated, we don't have to shave our heads. Are you shocked Ilkar won 2 matches at an ATP event? He has been so bad recently. I mean, am I shocked that he won against these particular players? No. He played Dimitar Kuzmanov, who honestly usually did pretty well in Sofia. but he won just 3 games, and hasn't been doing too hot himself. And Max Purcell, I've said it many times, I think he can lose to anyone, really. He just has this slice-heavy, super weird playstyle where it's actually not as easy for him to attack as people sometimes think. And on a bad day, if the opponent just likes his ball, likes what he's trying to do, he can lose to absolutely anyone. And then, of course, he can also reach Cincinnati quarterfinals. But I think that's more or less the future of Max Purcell at 2 level. Like, no consistency whatsoever. Maybe sometimes he snacks like he just snatches a win that you don't expect from him. But against these particular opponents, I'm not shocked that Ilkay won 2 matches. But of course, it required a very good draw for him to do it, given that after a tremendous start to the year, and like one where you would actually think, okay, maybe he's going to make a top 100 push or something. Like, that was the best from maybe October last year, Vilnius, to Lugano this year, March. That was the best patch of Cem Ilkay that we've ever seen. I don't know the highest ceiling, but certainly the consistency. But that ended very quickly. So it took a lot of help for him to make the quarters here, which I think it must be his first ATP quarter, right? Like, I haven't actually checked that, but I would assume that that is true. Let me see. Yeah, I mean, basically he only had 1 ATP win before, it seems, even, right, in Doha. So Doha 2000 something. Oh no, and sorry, and this no, Doha 2020 he beat Berankis, and yeah, that's basically it. So of course that's the biggest week of Cem Ilkay's career, and the live stream is about to start. That's what they say. Yeah, Vansh, I just mentioned that. Yeah, that we said that we are gonna shave our heads if that happens, but we'll see. I don't think it will. I think Djokovic is just going to end the dilemma very quickly. Who has the highest ceiling out of the young Belgians coming through? Bergs, Onclair, Collignon. Probably Bergs, right? Still. I think if he gets a full season of being healthy, and I hope he gets that in 2024, he makes the top 100. The other two, I think they are destined for good challenger careers, but anything after that, I think, is a bonus already. Probably more excited about Onclair. I think he just has a bit higher upside, great timing, whereas Collignon, that sweet backhand, but I'm not sure if that game will hold up really the higher you go, whereas Zizou clearly has that peak performance. I mean, he showed it Antwerp 3 years ago, right? But I think all of them might be trumped by Alexander Bloch, however you read that. Gilarno Balino, no, I don't really think he will go that far. He is actually supposed to play college, which was a bit of a surprise for many people, but I think it's the right call. He wouldn't really hold up at the challenger level for now, I think, but Blogs will, and he could be the most exciting Belgian right now, but certainly quite a lot of fun if you're a Belgian tennis fan at the moment. There's so many youngsters coming through, and of course, even recently we've had by 2022 Roland Garros US Open runner-up Blocks, the winner this year at the Australian Open. I think Rublev will make third. He's become Ruthless Rublev. Third as in semis or again, let's see the draw. I think he is still very unlikely to beat most of the top guys, which is, the top 4. And you kind of have to make one. You kind of have to get 1 win at least to over them to get through the group stage. How has Van Asch made such an impact at ATP level? He hasn't. I mean, has he? I haven't noticed that. He absolutely hasn't, in my opinion. Like, the run in Meds this week. Okay, he had a fine win against Botic, who quite clearly I think has kind of peaked. And Stan, he only made it through Stan because Stan fell and injured his ankle. So I don't think he did anything really this week so far. Obviously, he's playing Pierre Gerber now, Maybe he wins that, but will he be the favorite to make it through Shevchenko? Yeah, I wouldn't really count on it. But yeah, basically a lot of the stars had to align this week for Luka Von Asch to make this quarter, I think. Yeah, earlier than that he had that Hamburg run, but otherwise his win rate hasn't been abysmal at the ATP level. It's not quite the Chun Sin Tseng get to the ATP level, fall down to 350 in the rankings. I don't think this will happen. But yeah, I don't think he holds up at the ATP level. And at the ATP level, actually, no. In the long run, I don't think he does. I'm thinking there will, not for now at least, like in a couple of years, in a season or two, why not? Not with the current state of his game. I'm thinking there will be a lot of BS in the ceremony. Yeah, I hope not. Well, one part of the BS is that we still haven't started it. There are some Nito ATP Finals video graphics on my screen at the moment. Van says he just realized that Alcaraz has to win 2 matches in order to guarantee the number 2 ranking. Yeah, I don't give a rat's ass about that, really. Although it could be important for Australia, right? Like, that's the only real thing. But guaranteeing a 4-3-2 ranking, I don't think it matters, really. It's the number 1 that matters. It's the top 10 that matters, for sure. But, these guys have already done that. Been there, done that. Who's winning the ATP Finals? There's a poll. You can vote in it. As you can see, it's Djokovic or other, which I think is fair. You cannot really do anything else there. Wow. Yaskin, wow. Luka Von Asch beat Cecchinato at Roland Garros. Fantastic. Has Marco even played since? I think he has played since, right? But like he finished his season a long while ago. Yeah, of course, I watched him live in Szczecin, and that was actually his last match, which at the time, of course, I didn't know. But basically, since the French Open, Marco Cecchinato won 1 match, and that was against Alexander Shevchenko, of all people, interestingly. Alexander Shevchenko, of all people. Someone is asking me about Draper's physicality this week. Of course, nothing really so far. Nothing so far this week, despite winning Bergamo. Is the draw ceremony starting? Yes, indeed. And they are... Oh my goodness, what's going on? So they're just drawing like this? They're drawing the doubles groups right now. Topo will make the top 100. I like that. I think he is a very underrated prospect. Yeah, doubles is being done, and it looks like there actually won't be any BS. So that's good for us. So in the green group, we've got Ivan Dodig and Austin Krajicek, and Santiago Gonzalez and Edouard Roger-Vasselin for now. And in the red group, there's Wesley Kolhoff, Neil Skapski, and Rohan Bopanna and Matthew Ebden. Ram Salisbury are joining Bopanna, Ebden, and Kolhoff-Skapski. That's a pretty strong group then. And Granollers Zeballos are joining Dodig, Krajicek, and Gonzalez Roger-Vasselin. So we have just 2 more pairs to be drawn. Gonzalez Molteni will be in the green group, so 3 Argentinians there with Zeballos as well. And then in the 8th group, there's that wild card sort of doubles pairing of Hijikata and Kubler. So we've got 3 Aussies in the red group. Just looking at them right now, honestly, I feel like the groups are pretty even. You could say that the red group on the right is much stronger because there's Kolhoff-Skapski and Ram Salisbury basically in one group. But at the same time, you also get Hijikata Kubler there. So probably the weakest pairing in the field, the guys who are only here because they won the Australian Open. Whereas the green group seems just a little more even to me. But yeah. And I guess we're already drawing the singles now? This is going to be rapid, yeah. So Novak Djokovic lands in the green group. And in the red group, of course, it's going to be Carlos Alcaraz, no question about it. And now we're going to see who lands where. So joining Djokovic in the green group, Medvedev or Sinner? Joining Djokovic in the green group is yeah, a bit of a delay for some reason. Yannick Sinner. So we get the Djokovic Sinner in Turin. We kind of wanted that, I think, especially, just to check out how Sinner's recent improvements stack up against Nola. There's Carlos Alcaraz, of course, against Daniel Medvedev. That's what it means in the red group. So a matchup we've already seen a few times this year. Well, 3, right? And twice it was super easy for Carlos, and then he lost to Medvedev at the US Open. Tsitsipas joins Sinner and Djokovic. I don't think that's good for Stefanos. I think he probably would have preferred to play Alcaraz, as everyone really. And Alcaraz Rublev in the red group. So this is the first matchup ever between Alcaraz and Rublev. Medvedev Rublev as well. I hate that matchup, honestly. I think Rublev does too. And then the green group. So Holger Rune. So we get another Djokovic Rune, we get a Sinner Rune, we get a Tsitsipas Rune. And then the red group is going to be Alcaraz, Medvedev, and Zverev. And that is the draw ceremony, ladies and gentlemen. Let's finish the stream. No, actually, I'm going to talk about it for a moment as well. Anything here that before Paris tourney that Medvedev could come into, but did he even win any points in Paris? Anyway, let's talk about the groups then. I'm just gonna stop my stream at the groups and then sort of think about that. So Djokovic, Sinner, Tsitsipas, Rune. Djokovic probably unavailable in terms of not getting out of groups because he is bound to win 2 matches here. Tsitsipas probably the easiest opponent here. I think Stefanos can easily finish 4th. He lost to Rune in Stockholm last year on a pretty quick indoor court. I actually think it was really good for him that he went Antwerp this year instead of that. So I like that decision, and it kind of ended up benefiting him. I mean, he made the semis, he lost 2 fields, but it was one of his best events in a while. And Sinner Tsitsipas is a pretty exciting matchup. I think lots can really depend on whether Sinner beats both Tsitsipas and Rune, because he's likely losing to Novak. But if I was to make a prediction, I would still go Djokovic, Sinner, Rune, Tsitsipas in terms of how it will be. But I think Sinner Rune for second place, it does not have to be obvious. If someone has a chance of beating Novak, I actually think both of them do. Sinner, if he just brings out his peak level, maybe. And then Rune clearly is a bit of an issue for Novak. But again, the Turin courts should help with that. And if Novak loses to one of them, he probably doesn't lose to 2 of them. The question is, will Carlos Alcaraz exit the group stage? And as I said, he is much more vulnerable than Novak. I think maybe even a little less, more vulnerable than Sinner or Medvedev at the moment. Alcaraz hasn't played Rublev yet, but I think it's a matchup that he will enjoy. This is a very predictable opponent and someone he will be able to just sort of enter the matchup and know what's going to happen, which I think is helpful. Zverev, he probably can exit the group stage, but I don't really think it will happen. Let's say that, Rublev has that Medvedev matchup, which has been really tough for him. Although last year at the ATP Finals, it was as close as Medvedev's all matches, basically. The red group seems a little more unpredictable. I would say that all 4 players have a solid chance. Zverev, if he finds that peak level, whereas for Alcaraz, let's see how he holds up physically and also in terms of the touring conditions. I would say that Medvedev is probably pretty likely to exit enter the semifinals to get out of groups, get out of the round robin stage. But the second player there, it's very open. So red will probably be the one bringing us more excitement in terms of close battles. But Sinner, Rune, Djokovic, that 3-player group on the green side. So when it comes to the power rankings of John, right, you have number 8 Tsitsipas in the green group, I guess. Number 6 Rune, and Djokovic was of course number 1. I can't remember. Sinner was probably like 3rd or something. So it also is pretty evenly split according to these rules that these positions that John came up with, and I think most of them are very fair. So yeah, as I said, like we didn't really have anything to learn from this. I think. Oh, Anastasia is here. I actually didn't notice. I have to find my earphones somewhere, but you can talk about the groups. I don't know if you are talking or not. I can hear you. Oh, now
Can
I
you
can
hear me?
hear some sound. Yeah,
Okay,
cool.
great. I didn't have my mic plugged in. Silly me.
Okay. So what do you think about
Good.
the groups that we got, and have we actually learned anything?
Have we learned? I mean, okay. In terms of the singles, I think because I've been watching some of the practice streams
Ooh.
and yeah, I just have it on in the background. But in terms of players' forms, Alcaraz doesn't look that great at the moment. Um, I don't know. He just, how he usually is super bouncy and super happy all the time. I've not been getting that vibe from him lately. So in that respect, love his group. I think I heard you right when you said Medvedev was probably someone who would get out of that group. And I agree. And then I think the fight will be between Andre and Carlos to see who the second person will be to come out of that group. So that's very interesting. But I don't care about that group. I'm more interested in Sinner's group. That's fire. Like I just want to see all of those matches. What do you think of what is it? Is it red and green? Is that the colors?
Yeah.
What do you think of that group?
Which one?
Sinner's group.
Sinner, Rune, Tsitsipas, Djokovic. I think Tsitsipas
Yeah.
is a bit of an outsider. Yeah, just seeing him snatch 2 wins there could be tough.
Mm-hmm.
Although he's of course capable of winning like once, definitely. So I would say Djokovic is way too strong to lose to both Sinner and Rune. But well, one of these maybe. I am really excited to see how Sinner stacks up right now, just because of the fact that he solved the Medvedev matchup, or like at least got himself to a position where the next matches he'll be like a 50-50 against him. To
Mm-hmm.
see if he can do the same against Djokovic, maybe not to a 50-50, but at least to a level where he can actually compete with Novak, because most of the time that hasn't been the case. And yeah, I think Rune, if he manages to handle the touring conditions quite well, which for him is more of an issue than for Sinner, maybe he could also threaten to exit the group stage. So it's gonna be Djokovic, Rune then in the first fixture, and we have Sinner, Tsitsipas. So could be a nice head start for Sinner if he really does get the win there. And then I guess it depends on who wins the first matches in terms of who's gonna play on the second slot. So we can't really go anywhere further from that. But yeah, Rune, he loses first up, probably plays Tsitsipas then. So it could be that if it's indeed Djokovic and Sinner picking up wins on the first day, then we're gonna have this Rune Tsitsipas match, which is gonna be basically live or die type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be quite exciting. But yeah, if someone is gonna make a surprise in that one, probably Rune.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I want to see that rematch from Paris between Rune and Djokovic. I think that would be great. And also sort of the rematch between Sinner and Djokovic, because I remember after he lost in Wimbledon, he had a more positive outlook on it. He kind of said he thought he made strides in that matchup, even though it was a straight sets loss, right? So I'm very interested in seeing that. Just like you said, he solved the Medvedev problem. What has he done to sort of either level up or solve the Djokovic problem? But in general, I kind of like where all the singles guys landed. Like I think it definitely is not fair. Fair is the wrong word, but I like where everyone landed. I'm happy. I mean, I think people can decide what they think about it, but I'm happy Djokovic and Alcaraz are on opposite sides, because then there is that possibility of seeing them in the
That was guaranteed, though.
Was it guaranteed?
Yeah, I mean the way the
Oh.
draw works is that you get 1-2, one goes into one group, the second into the other. You get
Oh,
3-4,
I saw it.
the same, 5-6,
Yeah.
the same, 7-8, the same. So basically, the way the pools were structured, we were guaranteed a pretty even split, in my opinion, because you just get Djokovic Alcaraz, obviously the best two players in the world. Alcaraz, a lot of question marks. You got Medvedev Sinner. I mean, I can't split between them, like in terms of who's more dangerous at the moment. Rublev
Yeah.
Tsitsipas is like the safe package, high base level, but are they actually good enough to win the title? Probably not. And Zverev Rune as like the unexpected, who knows what's going to happen. They can just come out and destroy everyone, and they can also just exit the group of a 0-3 record. So I think this was basically guaranteed, and this was why I asked it the way, have we actually learned anything? Because my idea before this draw ceremony was that, like, we pretty much know that we're gonna get some even groups, and Djokovic is probably still gonna be the favorite.
Yeah, because I knew that's how the draws worked, just in tournaments in general. I just thought it was different for the finals. But that's interesting, because now putting it that way, then what were we really waiting for?
It's the WTA finals, basically. It's the same system.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think in this particular case, the draw ceremony didn't really mean all that much, because usually you have, usually you would have, I don't know, maybe a high difference between a 7 and 8 player, or a 5-6. Let's say Rublev is let's say Tsitsipas is number 6 still, but number 5 is Rune. And then you're like, okay, so who's going to get the more dangerous Rune, and who's going to get Tsitsipas, who's probably currently one of the weakest players in the field. And then you actually have some excitement. Whereas now, it's just different names. It could have been a different configuration, but it's more or less what we just knew was going to happen.
What we knew was going to happen. Yes, that's interesting. Have you looked at the doubles draw at all?
I have, as it was done, but honestly, not much that I could say about it.
Oh, really?
Hijikata, Kubler, they're definitely the outsiders there in the field, but they are here because they won the Australian Open, and without them, the green group or whatever, it would actually be really strong. But because they're there, maybe it's just a little different. And the one on the left side of my screen when they were doing that ceremony, so probably red, I'm not even sure, that's the one that seems a little more exciting and just more evenly split.
Yeah, the red group is definitely where it's at. It's a shame that because you've got Rohan Bopana's group, you have Rajiv Ram's group, and then you have Skolsky all on one side, and you're like, well, so I guess one of those is not going to make it. But yeah, the doubles. I think it's leaning more towards the heavier on the red side of the doubles group.
I don't actually know which one is red, which one is green. I just remember them by how they were in the draw ceremony. So like left side of the screen, right side of the screen. But
right side of the screen is red.
Okay. So red is Hijikata, Kubler, Kohlskapski, Bopan Ebden, and Ram Salisbury. Yeah.
Yes. And then it should be interesting. I'm excited for it to start. Again, I really love these matchups that are coming up. Any match in particular that you're looking forward to?
In
the group stage?
Yeah, let me think about it. Rune Djokovic probably the first day or the second day, depending on who starts. Yeah, I would say Rune Djokovic, probably Sinner Djokovic as well. Alcaraz, not really. Maybe against Zverev, but that really depends on how Zverev shows up, and Alcaraz as well, I guess. But yeah, I guess the main thing is that Alcaraz Rublev, even though we haven't seen that matchup, I just feel like it's not a particularly interesting one. I don't feel like there's much of an enigma in terms of what's going to happen on the court. The outcome, I mean, it could be very different, depending on how the form of the day is and like injuries and etc. and the conditions, especially with Alcaraz. But yeah, I'm just not too thrilled about it. So probably the Djokovic matchups against Sinner or Rune, and to see if either of these guys can threaten him at all.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm more excited about the matchups on the green side of the field, and also just to see, I don't want to sort of call it early, like I think Tsitsipas is not going to make it, but it would be interesting to see how he kind of, he responds, or is he just going to, accept his lot in the situation, which is an early exit. But no, we'll be optimistic. We'll be optimistic about that. But
if he plays Sinner the first up, if he actually beats Yannick, then that would really set him up well. But yeah, it's a big ask, but definitely it's not like, John put him at number 8. We are putting him at number 8 sort of in the power rankings, but it's not like he's very far outside the the quality of the rest of the field. So
yeah. And he definitely did a lot better in the last 2 tournaments before the finals than I thought.
Yep.
Not Paris, in
Antwerp.
Yes. He did. He did a lot better than I expected. So maybe he'll keep.
That's a good one from Sean.
What? I mean, okay.
Yeah.
He does,
yeah.
Tsitsipas does say the darnest things, and there is a part of me that just really thinks he's maybe being sincere, and it's just sort of because I did go back and I read the whole quote, so I can kind of understand where he was coming from, and maybe he just sort of fumbled the end there, but it's a big statement to say that that the fine, because I in theory I understand what he's saying. It's the top 8 players of the on top of the ATP's rankings. It's all the matchups are really great matches and you're fighting for a big title, but to say it's more important than a Grand Slam is a lot. And I think a lot of people have pointed out he has won a finals and not a Grand Slam, so that might be coloring his opinion a little bit. But
if he was really sincere about it, maybe indeed he's gonna feel pressure. Yeah, Carhent, there's no ATP 250s 500s coming up. In terms of the main tour on the ATP side, you've just got the Davis Cup finals right after the ATP finals, and also the next gen finals the week after that. But in terms of the ATP 500s, Basel, Vienna was the last, and ATP 250s ended even earlier. Ended. I mean, they are ending this week, of course, with Metz Sofia, yeah, that's basically that.
Yeah.
Anything else, really?
No, not really. That was pretty much it. It's like now that you've said the whole kind of the way the draw situation was going to land anyway, I'm kind of like, okay. So this was pretty inevitable. Breaking news. Oh, no way. Awesome. Talking Tennis is going to Davis Cup. That should be super exciting. That should actually be really fun. I mean, I'm still kind of, Jack Draper won his match easily today. I don't know how to pronounce the Turkish player's name. Yeah, that was a little bit of a straightforward match. And also he seemed like he was dealing with the Turkish player, was dealing with some sort of shin issue. But that seemed like that's
funny because he has the serve motion where he hits himself on the shin, basically. Like when he's lining up his racket, he hits himself on the knee. And but that's probably not related to that.
But that seems so painful.
Yeah, wow, he actually said that it's really painful, but like he started doing it like that, and now he just sort of continues.
And now he can't.
Yeah.
Oh wow, interesting. But yeah, so Jack Draper's through, so that matchup between him and Struff, that should be super interesting. I'm excited for that match because it's kind of tough in those situations for me where I I would really love Struff to win a title. The fact that he hasn't, and he's been injured, you really want him to go further. But at the same time, I'm all for the young kids coming up and taking over. So I will also be rooting for Jack Draper. So we'll see what happens there. But it would be nice that if he can then make it to Malaga to represent Britain in the Davis Cup. And I believe it was very interesting, and maybe our producer can help a little bit with this, or maybe because the coach, or would you say it's the coach that's coaching
Team
the Davis?
captain? I don't know.
Yeah, the team there we go. That's the word. Team captain for the Davis Cup was at Jack Draper's match, but I don't know it. I didn't think he was part of Jack Draper's coaching team.
No, but it happens sometimes that they travel like that.
Yeah. It was interesting that he was there. Maybe sort of maybe
Who's the British Davis Cup captain now? It was like Leon Smith a few years back.
Yes.
It's still him.
Leon Smith, he was there. So that was interesting.
Yeah, so that happens. I think he has been traveling quite a lot with some of the Davis Cup players as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I think he did show up at a lot of Mari matches in the past as well.
Okay. Cool. Excellent. So yeah, Talking Tennis is going to be in Malaga for the Davis Cup, which will be super exciting. So we can get sort of on the ground live reports from the team that goes over there, and should be an exciting finals. I mean, Djokovic is going to go there straight after the finals because he's trying to win every match and get every record from now till eternity.
Yeah, from 2008 to eternity. Yeah. So I guess that's it. That was the finals draw. It was very unceremonious. The ceremony was very unceremonious, but I like it. I like that there wasn't like a French, not French, but Italian the president of the Italian Federation coming out, and like Gaudenzi speaking as well, and like it could have taken 40 minutes. But I'm glad that it took just 5. They could have hosted it an hour earlier, though, when it was originally scheduled, especially as the draw was, there was just nothing about it, really.
Yeah.
But we talked about that. You guys know where we stand. And let's get ready for Sunday when the first 4 matches, 2 singles, 2 doubles will be played out.
Yeah, I'm sure Talking Tennis will be doing a bunch of live watch alongs. So join us for that. Trying to hit 5,000 subscribers. Can we do that by the end of the year? I believe we can.
5,000?
Yes.
Ooh.
I think yes. Come on. I mean, Carhan, have you subscribed? I think Carhan has, but Carhan has totally subscribed. But I think we can hit 5,000 by the end of the year. So let's go for it.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. I mean, when I talked to Shevchenko in September, he said that his goal until the end of the year was like to break the top 50. And I remember being like, ooh, that's an ambitious goal. And if he wins Mets, he's actually going to get there. So, sometimes you set up these very ambitious goals for yourself and then you actually do it. So.
And then you actually go for it.
4,000 by the end of Turin, yes. I believe in that. 5,000 by the end of the year? We'll see. But obviously, guys, thank you for all the subscriptions so far, all the premium members as well. And hopefully 5,000 very shortly, whatever the date is. We're going to be happy about it and keep building the community.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.